Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is MS eDiscovery in Focus, and I am, of course, Ryan Murphy, and I'm joined by Heather. If this is your first time visiting us on this podcast, we do have two other podcasts available on YouTube and Spotify. First episode is an introduction to myself and Heather and why we created this podcast. And there's a quick look around the actual eDiscovery portal of the new UI UX. The second episode, we do a pretty much deep dive into data sources. In this episode, we're going to talk about searching with the conditions builder and searching with what Microsoft called their keyword query language. So, hey, Heather, how's things going?
Hi, Ryan. I'm Heather Ekman. I am a compliance technical specialist based out of the US. A lot of eDiscovery experience. If you've seen the podcast before, I've made that intro before, but super excited, Ryan. Excited to talk about searching because I feel like there's so much that we can do here, so many different use cases. So I imagine that we'll probably have quite a few other episodes that dive deeper into searching. So how about we take a look at the UI and jump in?
Let's do it. And I agree with what you're saying there. I think this, for me personally, is a really good place to get going on understanding the elements of how to actually execute a search in eDiscovery, and more so within the new UI UX. So whenever you come into a search, I'll just backtrack here a minute just so everybody can see how to create a search first and foremost, if this is indeed your first episode on here. So you'd come into here and then you'd have, these are the ones that myself and Heather demonstrated in the last episode. So if you want to know more about how to create these with data sources, please go and watch that episode. Now, from our perspective, creating a search in itself, you simply need to come on here. We can give it an appropriate name. And again, just to reiterate, based on the last episode, is use that description to your advantage. Put something in there that's meaningful to you and to whomever may be looking in towards that case, like V1, this is an initial search, and so on and so forth. Then when you create that search, you can now see at the top, Microsoft has this values up here that you can refer back to. Okay, now, so as it states at the top here, you have the condition builder first and foremost. That condition builder is what is built out for you below. And you've got this drop down box here. Okay, but also you have this plus box on the left hand side. When you select that, you actually bring up more options. Okay, now before I go into those, just one second, I just want to show you very quickly that if you don't want to use the condition builder, the keyword query language is actually embedded here at the top. Just for ease, you would simply click on that and it would flip over into the keyword query language, where you could then start to build out that elements for yourself in there. And I'll just give a quick example here. And you could just add in my name or Heather's name or your custodian or your data source's name inside of there. Okay. Those are, yeah, Heather.
So I've actually found that as I've gotten more familiar and comfortable with searching in Purview eDiscovery and using the KeyQL, that I come directly into this now instead of using the condition builder because it's faster. I feel like I have a little bit more control here. So I definitely encourage people to, as they become more familiar, more comfortable, use eDiscovery more to start using the KeyQL. One thing as well that I do, and I don't know if you have seen people do this, Ryan, is I'll build out my search in the condition builder using the different search pieces to build out like the search criteria, and then I'll flip over to KeyQL to check to make sure that it's correct.
Absolutely. And one of the quickest ways that I learned keyword query language was that principle, Heather, where I would literally go into obsession with building out my conditions via the condition builder. And we'll see in just a moment, because we've got this query element at the top in the left-hand corner. And then in most cases, and we'll go into this a little bit later on for everybody watching and listening, you would probably use a certain portion of that keyword query language structure in other elements as well, repetitively. You'll have to change the custodian's name or even maybe the type of data that you're targeting, but it really becomes like a blueprint for you moving forward and utilizing keyword query language. One of the things that we emphasize in the book, actually, the MS eDiscovery book that we've written, Heather, is the fact that create a keyword query language library, save those most repetitive keyword query languages that you use on a daily basis, share them around the team, because I've personally helped customers out speed up this particular process, because you've already got the raw content there. Where the speech marks are, where you need to add participants in or sender, from, to, a case like that, all you're doing at that point is just flipping it around to the name. I think that principle that you mentioned before was definitely my quickest way to learning keyword query language.
Absolutely. And exactly what you said, especially if you're doing a lot of investigations with similar properties, you're doing searching for, say, for instance, Teams messages between two people. The actual syntax that you run is going to be the same quite often. So building out that search library, I think is really helpful. It's also easy to share with the team. So you're not going back and rebuilding it or even copying it from one case to another.
Exactly. And just while you were talking there, just one thing came to mind, specifically more here in Europe, of course, is that data subject access request, or that subject right request that we get a lot of in Europe. That query itself can be a static query. You just need to change that person's name around. I mean, I've helped multiple customers speed up that subject right request processing time. Throughout that case, of course, where they're basically in, data sources in, they've got a query there, is saved in that library, they bang it in, they change the name on that person, and output straight away. It's so much more easier to do it from that perspective. So, just an example based on what you said there, Heather, is we can now see in the top left-hand corner that this query is starting to be built out. We've got the conditions builder here, okay, which again gives you the ability to use an equals. All right, so you're saying these keywords equals hello, goodbye, up, down, left, right. Okay, now also what you can do is, as you're working through this, you can actually hover it over it. Now you'll see inside of there you've got hello, then in brackets you've got CS, goodbye, CS, so on and so forth. Don't worry about the CS just yet. Heather and I will talk about that in another episode, but that essentially is Microsoft's language in the background as an or Boolean statement. So what we're saying here is we're saying we want hello or goodbye or up or down or left or right. Okay. That's what that element is doing for you. Now, you can see at the top here, you've also got the or statement in here already pre-populated for you. It's just that the language in the background, the construct of that language in the background uses the CS. So don't get confused by that. Come up here and use what's in the top left-hand corner as your visual output. All right. So let's say, for example, then, Heather, we've got our keywords in. Okay. But now we need to be a little bit more refined on who we want being brought into that. Well, let's go for a date range, right? Because I think that comes up most prominently, right?
I agree.
So let's go with next in line, we'll go with date. And I don't want to do it before because that's just too easy to use, right? Let's do something a little bit more complex. Let's do between. So I want to do between, let's say, the 1st of January, 2025 to the 1st of April, 2025. Now that timeline can be as long as you want it. You've got a full calendar here. You've also got a little button here, which I found fantastic, just to click on, go to today. And you've also got this up button here that takes you through the years, not through the months. Again, very easy way to find your specific date ranges. Right. As you can now see in the top left-hand corner, it's executed a Boolean statement for you and then give you the date range of which you want to have a look between. So, as I mentioned, this query now, you could simply take this query, copy it, and then save it into your library if this is something that you do on a regular basis. And again, that's why I mentioned Heather. I think this is the best way if you're very new to keyword query language of actually learning that language first and foremost is building everything you can and be refined as you can with the condition builder and flip it straight into keyword query language.
I agree. And one thing I do want to bring up with the date range searching is, especially if you're just getting familiar with eDiscovery in the cloud, when you're looking at date ranges, if you're in a global organization, which many of us are, the date ranges because of time zones can get confusing sometimes. So I always recommend, if you are searching something like this, January 1st through April 1st, actually do the day before and the day after. Yes, you may get a little extra in there, but that's going to account for any time zones that you may have in your collection.
Yeah, and that's a very good point because I do see a lot of customers have been caught out with that as well, Heather. Also, from the fact that there are times where some of the data that's populated in the background isn't automatically pushed into the log straight away for eDiscovery to go and pick them up. I think this is more prominent with the likes of Microsoft Forms, maybe, if memory serves me right, Yammer, Viva messages in the background. Some of those infrastructure pieces don't actually appear until potentially later on in that day. So that's a really good tip to get to people is if you're going for 1st of January and you're going for the 1st of April, maybe try the day before on the January and the day after on the April. Really, really good point there, Heather. Now let's make this a little bit more aligned to what most people would look for, right? So we've got our keywords, and these are in an order as well. Sorry, I should have said that first and foremost. There's the reason why we built them out in this order is we would prefer you to use them in this order. And these are the most frequently ones used from customers, which have just been mapped up into the down arrow here. We'll have a look at the plus arrow in just a moment. So we've got the subject or title. Okay, so let's say we're looking for a document then, Heather, or even in an email, which we know the subject of. So we can put in here the discovery. Okay, so we now have, and I'll just expand this out. As you can see, it's already added the Boolean state in for me. And straight away, we've got subject or title. Now, one thing I've noticed with this, Heather, and I'm sure you've noticed it yourself because I know a lot of people have noticed it, is people will often put speech marks with a subject or title at the front and at the back. Now, if memory serves me right, when you do that, it's looking for everything. It's looking for the speech marks also. Is my memory correct there?
You are correct. Quotes, as we
Quotes.
call them over here.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we call them quotes in the US. But yes, when you are using quotes, it's going to look for everything exactly as is within the quotes. And I like the way you were talking about how it builds out the KeyQL query in the upper left, because you'll see here, when you put the quotes in for the actual search term, the search piece there, that you'll get the double quotes there. So I like that because I think for a lot of us, it's just a natural thing to do to put those quotes in. But now, looking at it, you did it, you can see it's wrong. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I think from my perspective, whenever somebody has come to me and said, "Hey, Ryan, I can't quite get this KeyQL query to work for me or this condition to work for me," and I say to them, "Okay, can you give me a breakdown of what you're looking for?" And they'll say, "Oh, yeah, I've got a few keywords. I've got a date range and I've got a subject and title." I'll say to them straight away, "Does the subject or title have speech marks for here in Europe and quotes for over there?" And they'll say, yeah, I've got them because I've got them on my keywords as well. It's like, you don't have to do that. What it's actually doing, as you can see at the top here, it's put double quotes in. So it thinks you're looking for speech mark or quote, eDiscovery and quote. But you're not. You're actually looking for that subject or title. So if I now take them out, you see this goes back to the default value. So it's really good from engineering that as soon as I pop this in, I'm getting double quotes to give you the indication that the quote isn't needed. Awesome work. And yeah, so you can make double on these as well if you wanted to. You can have another one in here as well with an or statement if you wanted to. So if I do the same for a subject or title, but I want to look for an or, and this time I want to look for in focus, then again I have the opportunity to do that. And you'll see at the top now my Boolean statement just after the date range is an and then I've got an or statement here, which is also saying I also want to look for this value as well. Cool. Anything to add there, Heather? So I make it a little bit more refined?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep,
let's
go
do that.
for it.
Let's do that then. So next in line, we've got participants. And again, I think participants in itself, and I'm sure you agree here, Heather, says a lot more than just an email or a chat. It's not just refined to those two particular places, right? Although a lot of people do get confused with participants, they'll say, I know I want the sender of something, Ryan, and I want the recipient of something. Okay, that's fine. One thing I do see quite a lot is where this is invaluable is Teams messages. So when you look at Teams messages, you're not the sender or receiver of that chat. You're actually a participant of that chat. That's where I think I've seen a lot of mistakes where people are saying it's using sender, for example. So I, Ryan John Murphy, send a message, Teams message to Heather Ekman, but we're participants of that chat. Have you seen that yourself? The confusion around that?
I have seen a lot of confusion, and for those that don't know, participants will include to, from, CC, BCC, like Ryan was talking about. If you're in a Teams chat, like a group chat, participants will include anyone that is in that chat. So there have been times where I have used participants where it will be something that's a little bit broader as far as an investigation, but typically I have seen a lot of confusion around it. And a lot of times what I'm saying is, we're looking for communications that are, from a particular person to particular group of people or person. It's a little bit more refined than what the participants can give us. So I think it can be useful in certain situations, but I don't think participants is kind of like the catch-all that I think a lot of people wish it was. So
Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people will initially instinctively gravitate towards participants, because in the Microsoft world, you are pretty much a participant of everything. Even within an email itself, you can be in a BCC, like you said, or a CCC header. So your mindset, or even my mindset, would be, okay, so they're a participant of this information, but it doesn't always work out that way. That's why we give you the sender, the from, the to conditions as well, which we'll get into in just a moment. So if anybody saw that, then I put myself and Heather in. Now you can actually see when I hover over this now, hopefully it comes up again, that it's already put in the comma between myself and Heather's name. Where did that go? Let me just hover off that perhaps and stay on there for a second. Hopefully it comes back up. There we go. Now you can see that even though I've added myself and Heather in as separate people, the comma's already there for you. All right. Now, what you will see at the top, of course, is, again, I get my standard Boolean statement mapped into me because it's here on the left-hand side. And now I've got participants and I've got Heather. Now, because it's got that comma in, it's automatically applied the or statement for you here. Now that does that itself in the background, which is very easy for you then to just tap in as many names as that you want, or email addresses that you want, into that query. And again, you've got the full statement at the top, the full keyword query language at the top, for you to essentially just say, okay, I'm happy with this now. This is pretty much something I'm going to do on a daily basis or a weekly basis, depending on how much time you're spending here. So I'm just going to take a copy of that. Now, if we I don't want to do anything else just yet, Heather. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it into the keyword query language as you mentioned before, and we can show them now what you can do from that perspective to have that in that quotes box that we mentioned, the query box, I should say, that we saw before. So
Can I
find
throw?
out, yes. If I now change this, if I now select key QL, it's going to tell me, right, continue and remove any conditions you have added and translate them into keyword query language. That's what you want, right? That's what you want if you want to be able to start learning keyword query language, or if you're refined in keyword query language, that's what you can do. So if I now press continue, there we go. Okay. You've already got that inside of here, right? You've already got that in here. Now, some of you, well, I'm sure you would have noticed it's brought the CS in with it. Okay. Now, what we can do is simply swap them to our statements, because this is now expecting human intervention, human input, not actual language input in the background. So if I now change these to R.
And I just want to mention here, when you are in KeyQL, the operators or the connectors or an and do need to be in all caps. So this is case sensitive. This is something that is different than DT search, relativity, some of the other tools out there, and it does take a little while to get used to it. If you don't have those connectors in caps, it is going to give you different results that are probably not going to be what you're looking for.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And just to emphasize that then, Heather, which is a very good point, is, excuse me, when you do that, when you see, and now I've got capitalize if intended as an operator, you actually get this syntax error at the bottom. These are really, really good. For anybody learning keyword query language, the fact that engineering have now added these in and they're actually descriptive, you can start to understand how to construct and craft those keyword query language queries sufficiently enough and accurately enough for you to just say, I now know that this needs to be an and statement. And you can simply just click on it, just like that. And then you could add in some more values from after the fact. The same applies with an or operator as well. The statement here at the bottom tells you the same thing. I simply just need to click on it and capitalize it. So if you are seeing those errors in here, then definitely come down here and start to understand, oh, okay, what is it that I need to do to understand, to express, to build out, to craft, whatever the case may be in the background.
And this to me is one of my favorite features, because honestly, I have never been the strongest with search syntax, and it takes me a while sometimes to translate it and get it into like any search tool, and it always has, and that's just how it is for me. And back in the day, a lot of the eDiscovery tools, you would actually have to run the search, get the results back, go mess with the search, run the search again, and this will show you where those errors are, where you need to change syntax. So again, like I mentioned before, like even if I'm using the condition builder, I'll come over here to make sure that everything looks good. The other thing that I want to mention is like this is also a great place if you're doing grouping in your searches. So you want to group some of those pieces of your search query together. You can do that in here as well by using parentheses. And that's something that, when we do some deeper dives, we'll get into that as well.
Yeah, very good point. And I think just on that then, Heather, which leads me into the next section very nicely, the fact that we can now see that the parenthesis must contain matching open or closing brackets. So sometimes when you're building this out in the conditions builder, you'll see that these parentheses are actually added in for you because, like Heather was saying, it's basically saying, I want you to take this information and or this information. So you're doing that grouping of those particular elements in line. Now, the good thing is with the new UI UX is you now have this remove button here. So it not only does it show you the error, which I've just highlighted there because it's in red, you actually now get the ability to just say, okay, where is this error coming up? Oh, I can see it's on the just before the participant because I've now got 3 when I should have potentially 2. So if I now click on this and select remove, now I've got a refined query. Now, this is probably missing some elements in the middle there from mine and Heather's experiences. So we can actually go in there and say, well, I want to add and this in as well. All right. So I think, Heather, and I'm sure you're going to agree, but I hope you're going to agree, the fact that because we've got this error reporting now going on, you as a newcomer into keyword query language, you're not just left to try and figure it out, like you said before, where, you know, you build it, you run it, you not get whatever you get back. And you end up in this position where, you know, maybe 16, 17 times down the line, you realize you're missing an and statement, or you realize you've got an extra bracket.
Yep, absolutely. And the extra brackets, or parentheses or whatever you want to call them, that is one that, especially when you get longer searches, that's always kind of been an issue, is making sure that your brackets, parentheses are balanced out. So if for nothing else, use it for that. But I think even beyond that, there's just a lot of value here. And like I said, once you get used to the searching, I find that it can be much easier and faster to come in here and craft your search here as well.
Yeah, indeed. Like I said before, I think the time you can save by saving these off into a keyword query language library, and again, we do go into quite some detail on how to do that in the book, then it's simply a copy and paste, right, Heather? That's as simple as
Yep.
that. You like how long have we took now creating this? Maybe 15, 20 minutes. And if you're brand new to this, that could be 2 to 4 hours, you know, but if you, as proficient as you are in this space, Heather, save this off for other colleagues, put it in a SharePoint site, or, you know, share it from your OneDrive or whatever the case may be, you know, copy and pasting this takes seconds,
Yep.
absolute seconds.
Or even just copying this and sending it off to somebody and asking for, just a review, sanity check.
Mm.
It's, they can paste it in here, they can look at it like on their own. So yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of the KeyQL. I know people that do come from that world of like DT search and other search engines. Takes a little while to get used to this, but once you do, I find it to be really easy to use.
Cool.
Yeah.
Happy days. One thing I want to link into as well, if any eagle-eyed viewers have spotted it, is we've got our standard Boolean statements here. What did you refer to them as?
Grouping.
Grouping statements. So I come from a big purview and DLP triaging background, so forgive me if I'm using the wrong terminology. For me, in DLP, they're Boolean statements, but we'll use the grouping statements just to make it easier. But I've got my and an or in here. Now, actually in the middle here, I've got a CC. Now, again, I wouldn't worry about this too much. And again, we do go into detail in the book around the CS and the CC grouping statements. This is essentially just acting as an and. But as I mentioned before, the language in the background doesn't take the and or statement as you would put them in as a human being. They basically flip them into the CS and CC. So if you see the CS, the Charlie Sierra one, add the or statement. But if you see the Charlie one, add the and statement. Perfect. So I think let's have a bit of a deep dive then, Heather, into the other conditions, and we can probably go
Sure.
through some of the ones that I feel I help customers with a lot, which is more around the types, content type, message type, and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. Because for anybody watching or listening to this, we mentioned this in the first episode, I think, and even in the second episode as well, Heather, is the fact that Microsoft is made up of many different modalities and applications in the background. So for you to accurately target that data of interest to you with Microsoft Teams or Forms or Loop or OneNote, whatever the case may be, we actually give you a number of targeted search operators that you can use, like type, message kind, item type as well. I think there is, Heather. So let's have a little bit of a deeper dive into those as well, right? So we've got at the top here, choose which conditions to add. Now, you've got all, common, exchange, and SharePoint. Let's just link into these bottom two at the moment in time, right, Heather? I cannot tell you the amount of times customers have tried to use both of the conditions that are in here interchangeably just for one application, right? So somebody's running something against an author, but as you can see over this side, there is no author. You are not the author of an email. You are the sender or recipient of an
Yeah.
email.
And I don't know if you know this, but back in the day, when eDiscovery was really becoming eDiscovery, and we were getting away from printing emails from Exchange servers and putting them in binders, a lot of the tools that were around at the time only had author recipient, CC title for the document, or the document title. So,
Mm,
you know, people that have been around for a while, that's how it started out. So an author would be, someone who authored a document or someone who sent an email. So,
yeah.
it is something that I think can be confusing for people. But yeah, and I always think about it that, I'm sending an email as compared to like authoring a document. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's important to know that those are not interchangeable in this system. The other thing that I do want to bring up is because M365 is a cloud-based ecosystem where we're always rolling out new features, updates, things like type may not change, but something like Loop that just came along a few years ago, that's something that is fairly new. So, there will be changes to this as new applications come out, as we update applications. So just
Mm,
something to be aware of. But I think that there are certain things like, item class or, which is type here, that, those probably won't change or won't update, but others might. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Good. Yeah, really good point. I think, I was asked only the other day around Viva messages and Viva infrastructure, Heather, and it's like, yeah, it's there, but it's still under Yammer just for now. I do, if memory serves me right from conversations with Prod Group, that they are going to change that and they're going to make it more of a friendly name so you can definitely identify that it's Viva. So we are very good at creating modalities and applications and new collaboration suites and software in the background. They eventually come through into eDiscovery because we know they're an important part. And, maybe one day we'll see a Teams or Viva or Forms in here as well. That might be an idea because, like you're saying, it's not just one particular element that you're discovering in the background. Like let's take Teams for example. It's a mailbox, it's a group mailbox, it's a SharePoint site. Do you know what I mean? It's those collectively that makes up Teams, and it's those that you've got to kind of look for with your query and craft your query towards. So
And
having
one
these
other
in,
thing that I want to bring up as well, when we talk about Exchange Online Mailbox, we're not talking just about email. And, maybe that's something we'll touch on in a later episode is Exchange touches so many parts of M365. So
mm,
much is stored there. And even for things like SharePoint and OneDrive, there are some connections there between the two. So, if you're new coming into this, just realize that Exchange is no longer just email and calendar and contacts. It's now Teams, Viva, Forms, all of these other pieces that are rolled into that Exchange mailbox.
yeah, that's a really important point to make. And I think just on that point then, Heather, let's click on this just for a second, right? Because we've got type here and we've got contains any, we've got message kind here as well. Now, these might not mean anything to you just now, right? But when you bring these into the condition builder, you get a subset of options, right? These are the most frequently used ones, okay? This is not anything and everything. The same goes for docs, emails, IM meetings, and for message kind also, right? You might be saying, okay, but so what, Ryan? But the thing is that these are more extendable when you click out the edit pen in the right hand corner. Look at all these that I've just brought to life that I can use to refine my query even more. The same is applied on the message kind. This little edit pen here is for you to edit everything in the suggested message kind, right? That's all this is. It's just a suggested message kind. It is just a suggested type. You can come in here and you can work away to find out everything. Now, look at everything that I just brought up there, Heather. There is so much more that I can go off. Microsoft Teams, instant messages, the most frequently ones that come up from my perspective. Heather, what about you?
Yeah, the same. Every now and then I'll have a request or see requests for information amount around meetings. But usually it is Teams and IMs.
Great, perfect. And now just go up to the top one here as well and just give you an option of what's in here. So you've got email messages, documents, instant messages. Some of them are repetitive, but we've done that for a purpose of we don't want you to miss any data. We understand how critical that data is for you. So some of them do exist in other search conditions or operators, if you like. Copilot activity, really relevant for the times that we're in at the moment with M365 Copilot adoption. Heather, this is another one that's coming up quite a lot as well. And because this doesn't really show in both of them, people are confused of, well, it's a message, Ryan, because it's a prompt into M365 Copilot. Yes, it might be, but always ensure the condition that you're using or the operator that you're using in the background has that supported activity in it. That's another thing that I see people gravitate towards support cases for because they've only selected message kind and type. Great. So I think, given the time of where we're up to now, Heather, it's probably a good time to pause this episode. In the second episode of Search, Heather and I are going to go into more of the conditions that we've got in here and show you, retention labels more prominently now, Heather, with the new UI UX is the sensitivity labeling lookup. That's becoming really quick. And we've also
Which
got the
I love.
Yeah, oh yeah, for
So,
sure. For
yeah, just
sure.
as a preview for those that don't know, in the new UI, you'll be able to search using sensitivity labels and sensitive info types. So,
Yeah.
super excited about that.
Yeah, and also path as well for SharePoint document library and URL to document folder, which
Yes.
I feel, Heather, doesn't get the love that it needs because not a lot of people know it's there. They're just like, oh, Ryan, I can't search for this particular document. It's like, well, you can, but you've got to use path, which is quite confusing to people because it's a URL that you're putting in.
Well,
But
and I used to use there is an article out there from Classic where you could actually run that search, but you would have to, I think it's doclink, you would have to put in
yeah,
doclink. And I would
yes.
use that quite a bit. And I would get a lot of calls asking, how do I run this search for a folder or a document?
Mm-hmm.
And now we have it in there. And you're right, I think it doesn't get the attention that it deserves. So excited to dig into that next time.
Yeah, definitely. And remind me on the docling thing because that is a phenomenal way of bringing back a document and not a folder of documents as well. So
Yep.
let's deep dive into that also. But again, if you've enjoyed this episode, please do give us a like and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. It's free. Heather and I would love to keep doing this and reach as wide of audiences that we possibly can. But for now, I think Search episode 1 we can kind of wrap up, and Search episode 2 will be coming to you in 2 weeks' time. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.